my friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yours truly, Rockin' Dave, the real deal, North Fort Myers, Southwest Florida. And let me see if I can get things adjusted here. I have got the PRS Single Cut SE, McCarty Single Cut 594 model, plugged into the Yamaha THRC. And maybe I could do a little moving the camera this way. This little guy. This is a much older version. I think they came out in the early 2000s, or maybe not early 2000s, maybe the mid, 2012, 2013, something like that. Anyways, they had three versions of this. A white one, which was kind of like their all-in-one to do. Then they had one that was like a metal army green, which was their metal for the metal settings, in this black one. And the C, this is more for people who call it their combo amp, but I call it the classic amp because it has a lot of the old classic models in there and a lot of more analog effects. And I just happen to be using, I think would be what, a class AB. Is that what it says on there? Yeah. Well, no, class A. So kind of similar to a Fender Twin with a phase shifter and a little bit of delay and reverb. So, nice sound. When you plug in the headphones, and if you have a wide jack or stereo jack, you could, go directly into a PA. It'll cancel out the speakers, of course. If you turn it off, you can see. Well, it looks like it's glowing, but it's not a tube amp. But yeah, if you plug into the headphones, you go into a PA or you go into a recording console, whether you're using a DAW or a digital, DAW, or separate standalone unit like what Deb and I use, Tascams or Korg models or Roland, whatever. Let me just kind of show. All right, I'll leave that on. Why not? Why not? Oh, it had I usually, on this guitar and for the fusion music I play, I'll have my pickup selector in the middle and draw from both pickups. And what's interesting with that, when you're soloing, even if you're playing rhythms, you could balance out between each pickup that you want. So it's kind of really cool effect. So, my other guitar that it's more like, it looks like a Paul Reed Smith, but it's the Gibson Epiphone Spotlight guitar, dubbed the Lawsuit guitar. That has one volume and one tone, which is kind of cool because you could bring down one volume and then it gets good to control both pickups if you're doing anything with an overdrive and you just need to clean it out a little bit. That's nice. But with the advantage of having like a Les Paul setup is that you get a lot more tone variations. And then this has the split pickup, which I got on both split right now. And then without split, it gives more of a thicker sound. But yeah, what I wanted to talk about today is in this episode of Realities of Gigging. Let me get my decaf caffeine-free coffee. Got to go to decaf, my friends. Let me see. What I wanted to talk about is what I call the residency gigs. Now, before I get into further on this discussion, I'd like to give a shout out to a couple of channels. One is I just watched a couple of his videos between yesterday and today. He's actually a drummer. His name is Tim Connolly Drums. And he's been putting up videos with his experience. He's up in the Toronto, in the Canada area. He would gig in Toronto. And, he's been putting up videos on his experience on gigging and what it's like being a professional musician, which he still is. He does a lot of teaching, recordings, and I agree with him 100% on the ticket sales gigs and the corporate gigs, and that's something I'll talk about more in depth on other videos, and he'll be talking on his experience too. Great guy. He's a great drummer, great musician with a lot of experience, my friends. And he started putting up these videos in response to some of the videos that I've been seeing, as well as he's been seeing, as Bad Brad. And some of his videos he's been putting up was with his experience being in the LA scene, and then recently, the last 30 years, being up in the Nashville, Tennessee, doing the Nashville scene, And just recently, Bad Brad has relocated down here with his family to Florida. He's trying to get his way to Tampa. I think right now he's over in the Daytona Beach area. And there's other musicians that I've seen. I've seen several of these videos coming out that are talking about the Nashville scene, and as well as several videos coming out talking about, you know, what so and so made in this band back in the 80s, and so made in that band back in the 80s. So, you know, 40 years have elapsed between 30 plus, about 40 years. 1984 was 40 years ago. And now they could kind of talk and kind of, you know, give the lowdown on what was going on and financially. And of course, it was a different world back then. And the pay that they were making, let's see who's on. Michael Lipinski, what's happening, my friend? I spent all afternoon. Hey, good for you. I appreciate that, man. Hey, what's happening, man? You rock, Michael. When we get a chance, we definitely got to come up by you, man, and just meet up somewhere at a restaurant. And now Deb's going to have the same schedule as me. So that means, especially for our summer breaks, a lot of time is going to be opening up for both of us, which is going to be great because it's what we've been wanting to do and explore some of the Tampa area. Now, I know, Michael, I'm sure you're aware of, yeah, I'm just, hey, man, but you know what? A humble plumber, let me tell you, Michael, anybody that does the trades, you're a great guy. You're a great musician, man. You're a great musician. I can't sing. That's my biggest fear, man. That is my biggest fear. Is singing. But with anyone that works in the trades, you have no idea how much you are appreciated and needed. So, and you're making a hell of a lot more money than what's happening out there with these. I can tell you that right now. And now more and more the videos are popping up with spilling the beans. Let's see. So the boss is having a party sent. Yeah. Yeah, man. Oh, sweet. I know. Yeah, we have a Labor Day gig. It just came in. Usually we are playing at this place in Estero, which is actually kind of 2 towns south of us. Let's see. Oh, sweet, man. Yeah. Oh, it would be great if we could, Michael. You know, I could still talk to Deb because I do know that Labor Day is Monday. We got a gig, and I got to look at the calendar what's on that weekend. And Deb's birthday is September 3rd. It'd be great. So I can't make any promises, but I'll tell you what, if we could, and she gives you okay, and we got the time, damn right, man. Yeah, you're a great guy, man. Yeah, real good to see you guys, man. Yeah. Huh, yeah, exactly, man. The band is good to play is right. But yeah, you know, in the trades, any type of a trade, HVAC, plumbing's big, electrical, and truck driving, or any type of CDL license. Our good friend Joe Wentz, I was just checking out some of his videos, and I was talking with him yesterday, and then today talking with Jim Guidry. Jim's another great guitar player, great YouTuber that does a lot of the grounds, kind of like I don't want to say landscaping, but kind of overseer of this huge property in Louisiana. I mean, you want to talk about people that got money? Oh, man. The guy that Jim works for, and Jim's got a great gig, man. And so does Joe Wentz. And Joe was making a comment about this. I have to make sure I comment. Yeah. whatever you do in life, you have to get up and go to work. At least that's it, man. Yeah, here's 10 years for your slave pay comes. You have to focus. Yeah. But you want to know something? Um, when it comes down to music and work, when we were younger, see, a lot of us were around the same age. We come from that generation that there were no TV programs entitled The Blue Collar Millionaire. There was nothing like that. So our mindset back then was not glorifying, companies like, 1-800 got junk, or pods, moving companies. It wasn't geared to that being glorified. What was glorified, a lot of us played in bands, so we wanted to make it big, right? Because that was glorified. That was part of our generation. Or if people were into acting and stage plays, they wanted to hit it big. Or people were artists, they wanted to hit it big in the painting world, in the fine arts world. It was a different time and than it is today. So musician-wise, back in the 80s, and I know Tim Conley was talking about this, and he's right. And so is Bad Bread when they talk about this. Back then, the pay was about the same as it is now. But see, back then, it was worth more money. So it wasn't really so bad. 40 years later, when the pay is about the same, it's kind of tough. And with that being said, it makes people want to think about, geez, am I going to go into a career with music, hoping to hit it big, but yet this happens, and I don't make a whole lot of money, especially like in the bar scene. I'm not knocking that, because it is what it is. But there are other avenues in music that people never really talk too much about, that in other later videos I'll get more in depth about. Gig opportunities where you're playing at senior citizen centers. They'll pay. Corporate gigs definitely pay. We've done so many corporate gigs I lost track of count. Wedding gigs, and wedding gigs for us personally, they really liked my music, so they would hire me for that, which was an honor. It was an absolute honor. Ticket sales gigs, which there's a lot of ways you could do that. You could have a different type of a theme to sell tickets. What is a ticket sale? Usually it is you're going to rent a venue, and it could be anywhere from a room in a Holiday Inn at some hotels. Now, some of the newer hotels I've noticed, or down in this area that are being built, they don't have banquet halls anymore. Some of them will, but some of them are not having it, because everyone now will meet on Zoom if they're going to do a conference call, or instead of spending money at a physical location, it's easier to hook up all on Zoom, and because again, it's a different world. But there are still those places that do have big banquet halls. And you probably say, well, what about the weddings? Well, the whole wedding circuit has changed too, because we've done so many weddings that were non-traditional, meaning the ceremony's not in a church, it's outside somewhere. The reception's outside, the ceremony's out. Everything is different. We have done those that were in churches. I know one of our wedding gigs. We traveled to Chattanooga, Tennessee, which was in a nice old cathedral type, not cathedral type, but old like colonial type wood church. And then back home in the Chicagoland area, we've done wedding gigs were in these old cathedral type churches, beautiful acoustics. But my point is that there's so many opportunities. When I was let me finish with the ticket sales. You could rent out you could even rent VFWs and whatever you have available. Restaurants will have sometimes a small room or a larger room. Rent those out. Your theme could it be anywhere from a jazz gig, blues, metal, 80s, or tribute bands and that. And then you just name the price. What you gotta understand with the ticket sales is that you're gonna base your ticket sales off of the price, that the cost of that room, so that you hopefully you can turn a profit. And that's the name of the game on that. But that's definitely, you could make money there. But and do what you want, as long as here's another thing with those gigs too. It's wise to have a liability insurance, and we got liability insurance. And the reason why we got liability insurance is when we started play at the Paradise Casino in East Peoria, it was a requirement for us to have insurance. So right away, Deb got on the ball with that, and we got the insurance, and we to this day we constantly keep up with that, because you never know when these gigs will come in, and they'll ask that, if you got insurance. We've dealt with agencies before. So there's a lot. There's definitely a lot. And what's going to be interesting, everybody's video is similar, but there's certain variations because of the areas that they live in, the certain requirements of that town, or if there's some, it's just the way it is. It's like if you're doing any type of trade, and you're in the trades doing any type of construction work, you gotta get permits. So you gotta get in touch with the city hall and register your permit. Now, when we had our HVAC company, we were licensed in Aurora, Illinois, but when we had to go to the outside towns, Batavia, Bolingbrook, Naperville, we had to register our license with that town. Sometimes you'd have to pay an extra fee. Sometimes it would transfer over, just float over. But so it's kind of like that, but different, because it's music and it's much different. But what I wanted to kind of focus on is the residency gigs, and again, getting back to like Tim Conley drums and Bad Brad and a host of other people. How you could tell, how at least how I could tell that they're legit, is this what they're saying, because been there, done that, from road shows to local shows. I could talk about, and I will in several videos down the pike here, gigging in the Chicagoland area, and then gigging down here in Florida, and then of course road shows and all that. So we'll be touching a lot of bases on these type of videos. Monday, just real quick before I forget, we are going to be doing, hopefully we're doing a live stream, probably discussion, and do a little playing on Monday, because Monday, July 29th, is going to be our 7th anniversary of living down here in Florida. We actually pulled up a couple of minutes to midnight, July 29th, and what experience that was. So we'll get into that on Monday. But I wanted to talk about what residency gigs are. Some people probably never dealt with those, Residency gigs are gigs that you're at a certain place for X amount of weeks, months, and even years. You're at that same place. I actually started getting involved in residency gigs with the Top 40 band I was in back in 1987. But it was kind of a looking glass into a view into the future of residency gigs. It was a little bit different because the clubs would book us, or two in particular. One would have us play 6 nights a week, and I think the most we did was 2 weeks back to back. I can't remember, but we definitely remember the 6 nights. And during the week we would play 5 sets, and on the weekends we would play 6 sets. So we were working. They were working us. And again, the ratio of pay compared to now to back then, it seemed like we made more money back then. There was another place that we played at. We would do 4 nights a week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was the same thing. During the week it would be 5 sets. Weekends would be 6 sets, because during the weekends they would stay open later. And that's how that was. And just like what Tim Conley was saying, you come, man, you're done playing. Sometimes you're done playing around 2 o'clock. Sometimes it was 3 o'clock. I think a lot, for the most part, would be 2 in the morning. But by the time If you tear down the gig with the residency gigs, with these type of gigs, you're there X amount of days in a row. You leave your gear there. Just I take my guitar and pedals home. The amp would stay there. Um, and then on the way home, we would stop at a Chinese restaurant and get the beef fried rice, and kind of chill a little bit, relax, unwind. And these places were about a good hour away from the drummer's house. And then I'd get on the bus and I'd go home. So by the time I would be getting home, it would be between 5:30 and 6 a.m. because sometimes I didn't have a car, so and I didn't really need it. So I'd wait for the bus, and that takes time. In those early morning, late night time frames, the CTA span is what's wider because no one's really out. I think after 6 a.m., their schedule picks up because people will be going to work. What was nice about living in a big city in Chicago, you didn't really need a car. Public transportation was everywhere. It was everywhere. And it was relatively cheap. So, that was my sneak peek into the world of residency gigs. After that, the other gigs that we'd have in the Chicagoland area, which include Chicago, we did a lot of corporate gigs downtown Chicago, a lot. Fairmount Hotel, Amagiano's Little Italy, Trump Towers downtown. It was a place called Rebar in there. We'd do work for ExxonMobil. They would have us play in Joliet, Illinois. And every year we'd be there. Morale Realty would have us in Lisle, Illinois at the, I think it was at the Wyndham Hotel. And then, of course, they rent out the banquet. They'd rent out 2 banquet halls and have their whole event there. Your corporate gigs, and that's why it's called corporate gigs. Usually it's big companies are having these parties and they just want to hire entertainment for their parties, for them, for their workers, for their clients. They will, invite their clients to come out and just have a big swing ding, So that's why it's called corporate gigs. Sometimes members from those companies would have smaller parties in their homes, but their homes were huge. So they would hire us to play in their private homes. Those type of gigs, you'll make money, hands down. We've done so many corporate gigs also that would lead us to travel. We got hired to do the gig for the Kentucky Derby. We were playing up on the rooftop. So, and again, like I said, we're getting more in detail on those subjects down the road. But my point is that there's a wide spectrum of opportunities to play music. But today I just wanted the residency gigs. Let me get back to the residency gigs. Down here, I've had a few already. Yeah, a few residency gigs. The first one, La Corte, I was there about 2 years, and then they sold the place. I went to another owner, and I played a few gigs there. Then that owner sold it to a new owner, and I get my residency gigs with the new owner, and now it's called Jungle Bird. And I'm there every Monday during in season, from January, the beginning of January to the end of April. That's when their hot spot is, and they have me play every Monday. If you don't know what in season is, I don't know, you're up in the Sarasota, in that area, you might have an off season, but down in this area, it's really an off season. It gets very, very bare because there's a lot of snowbirds down here. Because in the area that we live in, it's considered old Florida. I never knew that. Just for me, it's okay. We'll go to Fort Myers. Okay. And a lot of snowbirds down here. It gets real hot, and they got homes up north, so they take off up north. And when they take off, population gets very bare. So, and then now let me get back with the residency gigs. So that's what in and out of season means. And then my recent residency gigs was with Yucatan. Now Yucatan, we were there about 2 years before the hurricane hit. When Hurricane Ian hit, I'm going to tell you guys something, and this is something you got to consider too, that could vary from town to town, state to state. Another thing you have to consider is, are you living in a state that has natural disasters? And when some people say, well, I'm in the Midwest, we don't have that. I used to live in the Midwest too. We would get tornadoes. Not a whole lot in the city of Chicago, where I was born and raised and lived and played. And, you know, so when I say I'm from Chicago, I really am. Cook County, Illinois. Cook County, Chicago. Chicago, Illinois. Later on, I moved out to the suburbs. And when I met my wife, Deb, we were living in Aurora/Naperville, Illinois, which is the far suburb of Chicago. But let me get back with the residency gigs. When I was at Yucatan, we were there for about 2 years, and Hurricane Ian hit and wiped it out. The building structure stood, but took a long time to rebuild. They rebuild, and when they finally opened up, they had us come back. And again, every Saturday and Sunday, as you guys know, because you got the videos up. And why that lasted until our last gig was the first weekend in July of this month. And then they had to stop the music for a while because they started doing road construction on the bridge. And I do have a video from the live stream where I walk out there in the parking lot, and there's a stoplight that's right there. And the traffic is all backed up on both sides. A mile, 2 miles, it's getting, ridiculous. That started hurting their business. When I started working on that bridge, I started noticing a decline because people don't want to get stuck in that traffic. I mean, that's just the way. And actually, all the big restaurants are kind of hurting because we'll still go to, on Saturday mornings, go to the Perfect Cup. It's down the street from Yucatan. It's only open morning and afternoon, breakfast and lunch. And the waitress was saying, yeah, even they were getting hit. And they're on the other side of that bridge down the road. And a couple other restaurants that are before Yucatan's and Perfect Cup, they're experiencing it. Yeah, the waitress was telling us one of the other restaurants has even experienced quite a huge drop in business. No traffic. And it's not just due to off-season. The locals. When you come in from Cape Coral and you turn onto Pine Island from either Veterans Parkway or Burnt Store Road, which is the same road, and you start to go, the first restaurant is not until about 2 miles in. I know it winds and twines a little bit. Yucatan was the last restaurant on the other side of, maybe I want to say 7 mile, between 5 and 7 mile stretch. And Yucatan was the last restaurant. And then you continue on for quite a few miles before you hit a street called Stringfellow Road. And then when you hit that, you tee into it. And if you make a right, they'll take you up to Tart Barn Lodge and Bokeelia. And quite a few miles way north is other restaurants. You gotta go for maybe 10, 12 miles, maybe longer. And then the same thing with going south. I think Froggy's restaurant is maybe 13 miles. I'm just taking educated guesses. Maybe not that far, but it's a very long stretch to go down to the next set of restaurants. So the residents there, they're going to hang out over there. They're not going to drive 13, 14, 15 miles to Yucatan, and all of a sudden they're stuck in traffic because they're working on the bridge and they're already stuck in traffic. You're like, okay, we ain't going to do that. Residents that are on the Cape Coral side, there's other restaurants that's right around the corner. They're not going to get stuck to go to the first restaurant because traffic starts to get backed up. So it's kind of a tough situation. So I could see why they have to hold back. And they did it with all the music. It wasn't just me. It was another lady. It was everyone. Because they started losing money because, of what's the building going on. So here's the catch-22 with residency gigs. Residency gigs, you'll make a lot of money, and if you're there for a few years, you add that up annual, and you're in the thousands, my friends, which is pretty nice. Pretty nice. Here is the downfall of that. When something like this happens, or they decide to change up the music, or they get bought out and turn into a sports bar. Whatever the case, the music starts to shift. The music starts to go by the wayside. We gotta, maybe change here because we can't afford it. Then you lose your gig. That means you lost that income. And it's nothing bad on the owners. I want to make a very strong point about it. It's nothing bad on the owners. I will always give them the respect that they deserve. I will not be combative. When they talked to us about this, they had to cancel the music. We totally understood. And we told them, hey, we're on your side because we understand. And you need to do what you need to do to survive. Because they still have great food there. So, I'm gonna say something, guys. When you have multiple streams of income, it's a good idea because, again, like I said, depending on where you're at, if you're in an area that there is high traffic of natural disasters, this alters things. This really does. So we told the owners and the manager that no, we understand, we're on your side. If you when you decide to pick up music, we're available for you. If you want to just put on rotation, that's fine because they've been very good to me. Every one of these places that we played at, these people have been great. I have absolutely nothing to complain about, nothing bad to say about any of these people because they've been so good to us. And I wouldn't want to say anything bad because I understand. They're not being malicious or anything like that. A lot of times they got families to support too, and they got employees with families to support. So they're in a tough situation. They really are. I do know, and I will agree with Tim Conley, drummer, that you do have some bad apples out there. And he's right when he's saying in one of his videos, nobody cares. You put all this time in, and you put all the effort into being a musician, and in this day and age, nobody cares. But there was a time when they did. And we could talk about that at a later date because I don't want to get off topic here. So what you have to take in consideration when you do residency gigs and all of a sudden the place shuts down or they change their format, whatever, now you lost your gig. Now you're back out selling yourself, So the catch-22 is, yeah, you're making the money, but at the same time you lose those opportunities to make not just your contacts, but building a working relationship with other restaurant owners. What will save your reputation? Because just like Tim was saying, these people talk. Restaurant owners talk with each other. Agents, booking agencies, they all talk with each other. You're all in competition, but I'll tell you what. When it comes time to pull together, who should we hire? Who would you recommend? They're going to talk with each other, guaranteed. So the worst thing to do is go on the bashing and trashing on the internet. And I've met a few people that would do that, and they don't realize just how badly they're cutting their throat. Their throats might already be getting cut because of, maybe a restaurant owner or agent doesn't really like their particular style of music. Or they might not like you as a person, even though you didn't do anything wrong to them. That happens. You're going to have, when people tell me there's no bias out there in music, there's bias in every single job that's out there. Every type of career, every type of job, you're going to find bias. It's how well you handle that bias. And with music, it's one of the worst. It could be one of the worst. Because in this day and age, musicians were known for spending thousands of dollars on gear, driving hundreds of miles to make maybe $100. One of the music stores have a T-shirt that actually has that slogan on it, and it is so true. And this video and these videos that I'm talking about, and the same with Tim's videos and Bad Brad's videos and all these other people, they're not videos to be down and depressing, but they're only videos to show you the realities. That's why I call this the realities of gigging. It is absolutely a joy playing music. A lot of us in our generation, this is what we've lived for. I mean, it was great. I started playing guitar in 1974. I was 11 years old. that same year for Christmas, the Thanksgiving Christmas holiday, we did our assembly hall. What was assembly hall? We were playing live in front of an audience. And to me, I'm sitting there with my other friends from our class, with our guitars strumming and we're playing. And we're looking at each other. We're having fun. We're seeing expressions on the parents' faces. They look like they're having fun. See, when you're young, everything is fun. So that mindset for me stayed with me. And that's why it became so enjoyable. And I can't remember. Maybe it was 1981. God, maybe 1980. Like 1980. I can't remember. My friends I grew up with who used to live next door to me in Chicago, right by Wrigley Field, they moved to another a location, a place called Logan Square, and they were American Indian, and they would go to American Indian Center that was down the street from my high school on Ashland Avenue. I think it was actually on Lawrence Avenue, just west of Ashland. So they'd let us practice there, and then they let us put on some shows there. And one was a talent show, and one was a couple other shows we did there. And it wasn't until one of the last shows we did there, I noticed there was you had people that were interested, and you had people that were not interested. I think that was my first experience dealing with people that were not really interested. No clapping, nothing. And it kind of catches you by surprise. It really does, because in your mind, you're thinking everyone's into it, but that's not the reality. And honestly, I think all of us have been invited to go to concerts. If someone had an extra ticket, or yeah, you might come with me. Yeah, okay. You owe me some money anyway. Let's go. You go. Maybe you don't really like the band so much. It's not your forte. You'll do a little of this just out of being polite. But it's you're not really into it. So it's likewise when people see us play something, they're not into it, and that's life. So that was my actually first experience of dealing with that. But what's really cool with dealing with negativity, and I don't mean putting it on people, I mean when you have it put on you, you become immune to it, and you learn how you build a strong wall of resistance against it. And what I mean by that is you don't become combative. You just ignore it and continue on. So if you notice when I'm doing some of my gigs and it looks like no one's paying attention, I could care less. I'm having fun. I'm out there, either I'm making money, or if it's a freebie, I still make money with tips and merchandise sales. And I'm doing what I like to do. And I'm happy and content with what I'm doing. And it's a win-win. And it was a lot of fun doing Yucatan and all my other residency gigs. Now when January picks up again, we'll be back at Jungle Bird if they decide to have it. If not, that's okay. With the residency gigs, getting back to that topic, that's what you got to watch out for. You kind of miss out on building working relationships with other restaurant owners. However, when something happens and you lose that gig and you go out to sell yourself, you could say, well, I was the house guitarist, it would sometimes be called, at so-and-so restaurant. They might know those owners. Or, oh, okay, I know that place. Yeah, it's got a good reputation. Okay, yeah. We'll put you on the rotation. And what that means is they got 100 bands. Now you become 100 number one band. You know what I mean? So you're on that rotation. And eventually you get that call, you get that slot. In the process of waiting there, you could call, give courtesy calls, and be polite about it. Don't call every 3 hours. Hey, is the manager in yet? Hey, did you make a decision? 10 minutes later. Hey, do you remember me? You know what I mean? Don't do that. Don't do that, because now it's bugging them. Just make we kind of split it out, every 3 weeks or maybe even a month, courtesy calls to see what happens, and then be polite about it. when we this is something that works for us. I can't talk on anyone else's behalf, but I can tell you from our behalf and how it's worked for us. When we talk with people and tell them we'll work with their budgets, but we don't want to be, doing things for free all the time. They take that in consideration, and then we start building this relationship, even if they haven't worked with me yet, with me or Deb. And then they start saying in their mind, you know, I've had people tell me this. For a musician, you don't come across as being cocky, or desperate, you know, bothering. Some of these people, man, they don't understand. I got a business I got to run too, to be the restaurant owner or even the manager. And I like to help everybody out. Now and these will be the good ones, the good restaurant owner. Because like Tim said, there are some that they don't even care they don't care anything about you. They'll say they love you all and they love your music and like you all that, but when you ask for a raise, they don't forget it, man. Although we have gotten raises from restaurant owners, I will say that we have. I can't mention any names, but they've been very, very good to us, and I think that's part due to the fact that we're not combative, and we work with them. We don't work against them because we're all in this together. And here's something you got to think about. Even though you get the residency gig at the restaurant / bar and grill / bar club, they are a bar or a bar and grill or a restaurant first. They're not as separate. They're not a music venue. They will say they'll advertise they have music, but their main source of income is going to be food and drink, not music. Music is secondary. If they turn into a sports bar, which is a lot of places have been sports bars. Sports bar is a little bit different because that kind of draws people in because they got like 1,000 TVs all over the place, but it's still a restaurant. And if something happens to that industry about being a sports bar, they could take off the TVs and you can look at pictures on a wall, but you're still going to be eating food and drinking drink because number one, that's what they are. So when us as musicians understand that, it's a little bit easier to see they got more of overhead expenses than we do. And when we look at that from their perspective and then come back and look at our perspective, then we can kind of balance it out. Okay. Because there are times I've dealt with walking into these places, you talk with the manager or the GM or whatever, and you're like, oh man, this guy or this girl looks like, man, they're snotty. They're not snotty. Just had a phone call or talk with a customer that just, was ridiculous. How come my coffee's too hot? Okay, sorry about that. How come my coffee's not hot enough? How come this? How come that? How come? The good ones will own up to it and they'll be polite about it. But we're only human. And after so many insults, because you got good customers and you got bad customers. Good customers are not going to be, they're going to understand. Bad customers are going to make it more of a deal out of it than what it really is. And that's what sucks. But unfortunately, when you walk into a place, you might be talking to somebody that just had to deal with that situation. So they're going to come across as being a little bit irritated. And that's what I mean by understanding their perspective. So that you don't come across like, oh man, wait a minute, big turn off. You just close the door on your own self before you even had a chance to sell yourself and have a conversation with that person. That's what you gotta watch. So when that happens, just be polite. And don't go all on the internet, oh, I talked to this person, they're cocky, and they're this, they're that. Don't do that, because they're going to find out. They're going to find out. The easier you are to work with, the more they're going to want to accept your bidding and your work. And they'll chances are, they're going to give you that opportunity. But like I said, with the residency gigs, that's what those are. You're there X amount of same day. Could be for a month, could be for 2 months, could be for years. There was one guy that was at a place in New York, one of the jazz clubs, for like 8 years. 8 years. And then when the place closed or they changed whatever, he lost that gig. He lost that 8 years. He has 8 years of that income. And what happens? You get comfortable and you think, I got it made. I got this. You got to understand that anything could happen. That's why people's situations are different, and also for their financial situation, also where they're geographically located at. You got that's another concern. Like I said, with the hurricanes and north Midwest with the tornadoes and that, you have to take those in consideration. So, what is your backup battle plan when Plan A kind of gets disrupted? You could watch your expenses. If you're doing music full time or art full time, whatever you're doing, the key is watching your expenses. And we'll talk about that when we did our road shows. We'll talk about that a little bit in depth. But a lot of people now, the way the music, especially now with the music, scene is there's been a decline in interest compared to back in the day. I remember everybody was going out back in the day, back in the 80s, man. It was places were packed. When we did the metal scene in the Chicagoland area as recent as the late 90s, early 2000s, people would come. We'd have our set of all originals and maybe three covers tops. And it didn't mean that we played all three of those covers. But people were coming out. But especially in the 80s, they were coming out. You started seeing the split. You had the top 40 circuit, and then the tribute bands started to come out, but you had the original venues. Places that would have, and bars would have original music. And those places would be packed. Because the music was a hot item. It was especially in the mid 80s, it was the top of the metal scene. And people wanted to go out. And you had the dance hall places, you had the dance clubs, and you had the blues clubs, and the jazz clubs. I mean, a lot of jazz clubs, man, they were thriving. Having the jazz fusion music, ooh, man, killer musicianship. In the Chicago and downtown Chicago area and Lincoln Park area, we had Holstein's, which was basically more of a folk music was there. It would be packed. One of the places I played was called Orphans, would have a mixture of everything. It was always packed. You had the alternative rock, which wasn't really called alternative rock, it was called indie rock. It was kind of just like your basic rock music. Those places would be packed. The places that we had punk rock music, those places would be packed. The metal circuit, we had a lot of places for metal music. Oh man, it was incredible. And then you'd have Sundays. We also be doing what's called all ages, and it usually was 2 or 3 bands, sometimes 4 bands. But see, a lot of that's even during on the weekends. It would be 2 or 3 bands playing. So we would do a one set, and another band would do another set. So that was more the commonplace. But that was back then, and people would love to go out. This is a different generation, different times. So when you do restaurant gigs, you're playing to a much different crowd. So this is why you don't see me doing all the intensive shredding like I've done on some of the other videos and like some of the metal. Of course, I'm not gonna do that because at the restaurant gigs, these people don't want to hear all that, man. It's too noisy. It's too much. They're trying to eat and have conversation. Which, by the way, instrumental works great for restaurants. Instrumental music will always work great for restaurants because a lot of times people want to have a conversation. When we got the gig at La Corte, which is that high-class restaurant I was playing my acoustic guitar at, you'll see on my channel all the videos of that. We literally walked in the place with my guitar, Deb and I, and asked the lady if she could just give me an opportunity to play for her. I was trying to sell, yeah, I can play. Played some classical Spanish pieces for her, and right away she got on her phone talking with her husband. Turned out that, they're from Italy, and she also played classical guitar before she came over here. I don't know to what degree she was and what level, but I could tell you what, she certainly understood what I was doing. And right then and there, they booked us. And I think it was that Friday. Yeah, we were doing like 2 days. For a long time we were there. And then eventually it had to drop down to only one day, Friday. But it was a great gig. Great gig. So let me kind of summarize all of this before I close off here. Whatever your situation, your geographical location situation, or your financial situation, if you need to supplement those your income with other things, other entities other than music, by all means do that. Don't the danger of putting the stress on just music, you know, meaning that you feel I worked so hard, I have to be a full-time musician. It's a great experience. Deb and I have done it. We had, and we'll talk about this in other videos too, we had a solid 5 year of annual increase back to back. It was incredible. It was like a dream come true, man. It was incredible. But then we also went through the roller coaster ride, and that's what you gotta watch, because it's not a matter of if you're gonna go through it; it's when you go through it. So that's why I say have that backup system. And of course, and as you get older, you know, for any health reason or you need to just if something's going on, you're gonna find out in music the only insurance you're gonna have is you having liability insurance. If you want to play the hotel circuits or if somebody's place is asking you, you need to have proof of insurance, because we can't take the risk of any responsibility of someone getting hurt tripping over your cords or whatever. But health insurance, you're SOL, man. There was a time when there was with musicians unions. Downtown Chicago had a musician union. I was gonna join it one time, and then started thinking, man, I caught up the middleman. But you get all the top gigs, but then what was starting to happen, the club owners were saying, well, geez, I could hire this guy for cheaper than those people, and they're doing the same thing. This is what happens, my friends. Be prepared for that. I'm not knocking it, but if you're doing nothing but covers and you're doing the same covers that everyone else is doing, you're no different. And in the club owner's mind, you're really no different than the last band. Except if you bring more people, then you're going to be favored more. And I understand, because you're bringing them more business. But eventually what happens is some of these people, they kind of, I'm hearing the same songs. Different people, but same songs. One of the places that we were playing at, one of the guys, he said, I don't like the instrument. He says, I'm not really too into what you do. But what I like about you, you have passion. I like watching you play. And I'm not hearing you playing what everyone else is playing. I got sick of it. This happens. So that's why what I would say about securing a backup system, especially like I said, if you got any health issues, and you get it with a company that's got great health benefits, man, you may want to think twice about leaving that one. I'm going to tell you that right now. Where I'm at, my driving gig, I absolutely love it. And my insurance is great. And I get a pension. I get paid if I don't, I'm not going to talk too much about that. I got great pay, though. Great pay considering what we're doing. And I get time to do this and to make phone calls in between. So for me, it's a win-win. You know, the old scare tactic, for lack of better terminology, your day job is going to be killing your creativity. I used to buy into that. Oh, did I buy into that? I got my technique real good in that. Then I found out later on, well, you know what? I got the balance of two, driving gig, day job if you want to call it, and the music, and it did not take anything away from me. In fact, it made me stronger. And I'm 60 years old. And, after going through my AFib thing and all that, I still feel strong. I'll talk a little bit briefly on the AFib thing right now, but more in detail in another video. Everyone is going to experience that different. I have a thing called Cardio Mobile. It's a mobile thing that I can test my heart rate. If anyone asks, gee, you seem to be more playing melodies more than the shredding. Okay. Number one, I do like the combination of having strong melodies. It's got to sound musical, otherwise I'm not going to want to listen to it. And number two, I'm playing some of these places where people don't want to hear that. It's too much on their ears. But one of those reasons is it would make my heart rate start to go. And if anyone out there, I can't talk on anyone else's behalf. I can only speak on my behalf because I actually tested myself. And one of the gigs, when the first gig, the first day, January 1st, where I was supposed to play at Jungle Burn, I had to cancel because I had a situation going on with my AFib. My heart was racing. I had to call Deb. I had to tell her I can't. I'm not feeling good. I feel like my heart's going to explode out of my chest. So I felt bad about that too because, man, you know, the first day of the new year starts off with a gig. I couldn't do it. So it started to calm down like 5 minutes before I would have been taking the stage. But I'm not going to hurry up. Oh, I can make it. Then, then it starts back up. So I had to kind of monitor myself and really, really watch it. When I went to the cardiologist, I did the echo test, all of that, and the dye that goes through your veins, did all of that. Thank God for the insurance, because it didn't cost that much. If I didn't have this insurance with this company I drive for, I would have been screwed, man. The Eliquis, when they put me on the Eliquis, 3 months. It's a 3-month supply in 3-month increments they give you. And usually, my doctor says, usually once you're on it for life. Or until they could take you off. Because they got to go through all these tests. And that's what I had to do before he took me off of it. But for that 3-month period, my insurance paid most of it. I only had to pay $90. And you're like, $90? Oh, geez. Without the insurance, it would have cost me over $1,600. And if I would have had to stay on that for a few years, or for the rest of my life, that's every 3 months at this rate of $1,600 plus. Who knows what next year? Because the cost of living, everything goes up. So you see what I mean? So that's why I say the things that I say, because it's bait, and I apply it really for myself and other people who might be in that situation. You got to really think about this. You really got to think about this. And you watch Tim Connolly's videos when he talks about, you work 12 hours on his last video I see. 12 hours. He's pretty much correct. 12 hours and you come home with $125. Think about it. At some point, you get so burnt out from that, it's like, I don't want to do it anymore, man. Well, I don't want to play in those situations anymore. I'll do this. You see what I mean? So, point being made is that look at your personal situation, your health situation, or your finance situation. That's you determine that. And then again, if you do the residency gig, something happens and you lose that, then you just lost that income. So you have to understand that it could be a roller coaster ride. It is a great way to make money, a great way to make extra money on top of that. But again, these are different times. And anyone who is thinking about doing residency gigs, this video is not meant to discourage you from being a full-time musician or doing residency or anything like that. It's meant to just basically share what we've gone through. And there's a possibility you might go through that. And when you watch all these other people's videos, this is not the pity party video or poor me or don't do this, you'll never make it. No, it's not that. It's to share with you the experiences that we've gone through to give you the heads up you might go through that. But it is a great experience trying it, especially if you can afford it, because the only way you're going to know is if you do it. And you build up a lot of great memories, a lot of great times, man. And when you reflect on that, it feels good that you accomplished that. And again, with the residency gigs, it's a great experience because you build a solid relationship with a club owner, even if it's just one club owner, But because you've been there X amount of time, that right there could prove the fact that you really are you're good enough to do that. Whether people like the style of music you do or not, it doesn't matter. But of a personal opinion, your ability to prove yourself will stand on its own. And other restaurant and club owners are going to say, hey, this guy is got a track record of proving himself that he's a solid musician. Somebody likes him because he's been at this place for X amount of time. So maybe I'll take a chance on him because, hey, he might work at my place. So that's what's really good with the residency gigs. And a lot, like I said, restaurant owners, they'll talk with each other. Hey man, I want to hire Dave. What do you think about him? Man, it was great, man. He was a great guitar player, you know. And we've got people that like him. You're always gonna have people that are like you, and you always gonna have people that are not gonna like you. You're not gonna change that. So how you work around that is you just stay with the positive and respect those people. Here's something. When people say they don't like your style of music, it's nothing that you've done bad. No, they're just not interested into that style of music. Those are the honest people. When you get the haters out there and the people that got issues, don't worry about them. They're just there because they have their issues. But for the most part, you have something to share. They're going to like it. And those restaurant owners that want to take that chance, now they could say, well, you know what? He proved himself at this location. He's been here for 2 years, let's say. Even if it's 6 months he's been playing there. 6 months solid, somebody's been liking it. They had to change their format. We're down here in Florida. We see it. We understand. We got in and out of season. Some of us are recovering from the hurricane. Things happen. I think I'm going to take my chance on this guy because he could prove himself. And especially if you're not a combative person. That is huge. It's not just your playing ability. It's your personality and how you come across. One more thing before I close. If you come across as being desperate, here's how this could go against you really, really bad. You're the seller trying to sell your music or your art, whatever it is you're trying to sell. When you sound desperate because you put so much pressure and stress on, that's why other sources of income is really handy to have. You don't put all that pressure on this. Now you don't have to sound desperate selling yourself. But when you sound desperate selling yourself, the buyer sees this and like, I got this guy. Now I can name my price. He needs the work, but I don't need his product. Supply and demand. There's more supply than demand out there. See what I mean? Another thing that could go against you is when you come across so desperate selling yourself that you become combative. Oh, come on, man, you gotta hire me. I need this. Come on, man. People don't want to hear that. That's a big turnoff. One restaurant owner, I think, she said something to the fact that she had to tell one of the musicians, one of the guys trying to sell, book his band, he sounded so desperate. And basically she said, well, if you're hurting for money that bad, why don't you get a part-time job or something? I mean, we all have bills we have to pay. We all have things we have to do to say, I've got bills I gotta pay, basically, So if I can't help you, if I can't hire you, I'm there's nothing I can do. So you gotta be careful. You get so desperate, you start becoming, you sounding desperate and you sounding combative. Those people, man, they're gonna remember that, and it's gonna be hard to hire you again, man, because you just ruined your reputation right there. So being easy to work with is a key element to have. It'll go a long way, and even if and it's very hard, my friends. Trust me, I know it can be very hard, where they appear to becoming very rude to you, very disrespectful. Walk away. Walk away with your head up and a nice so long. You know what I mean? Not combative. Don't do combative, man, because you'll cut your throat. I'll talk on some more videos coming up on the ways that you could really build yourself up, where you could be more of what I would call like a product, and the ways you could build that up and build up that reputation. And it's actually a really good avenue to go down. It really is, because now you could build what everything that you've worked for and that you have imagined for yourself in your music. This is a golden opportunity to capitalize on that. But I will talk. Maybe that's what I'll do on my next video on how you could do that. You know. But we're gonna have a series of these realities of gigs. I'll talk to you about our road shows we've done, our ticket sales gigs we've done, gigging up in Chicago, Illinois versus gigging down here in Florida. Now we've been here 7 years. Yeah, maybe I'll touch a little bit on that on Monday. But Monday we'll do a live stream, and I will give you guys the time when we'll do it. But that's gonna be our 7-year anniversary celebration down here in Southwest Florida. Anyways, my friends, I hope this has been helpful. And yeah, check out all these other videos. And again, these are not negative videos. They're videos to give you straightforward what we've experienced. You might experience, you might not experience, but just keep that in mind. Anyways, my friends, until then, you have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday. Take care, rock on, and God bless. Thank you for watching.